Welcome to Amazing Grays. This show is dedicated to the idea that active, informed older adults are an essential part of today's society. We provide information regarding senior issues and concerns and salute individuals or groups who demonstrate that productivity doesn't end at retirement.
Hi there, welcome back with Dom DiPaolo and Jeff Pinski, authors of The Unholy Murder of Ash Wednesday. And we just spent about 13 or 14 minutes talking about general things, areas and background and so forth. Let's talk about the 7 years that you spent putting this case together. One of the things that is unique in this book, and maybe you can explain it, Jeff, in the front of the book, and don't worry about close-ups on that, but it's...
Well, what we decided, as you mentioned earlier, that it was kind of like a Russian novel. There were so many names and nicknames, and everyone seems to have a nickname in there, whether it was the Weasel, Jimmy the Weasel, Fradiani, or Ronnie the Crab, Karabi, or even Ash Wednesday or Bolo. He had several names himself. We decided we needed to put, with over 400 names, we needed to have a listing like we've seen in previous books, and I mentioned to you before that I saw it first in All the President's Men. I thought it was such a great idea to be able to refer back. So in alphabetical order at the beginning of the book, we have the entire cast of characters that are in there, and the reader is very easy then to, when they say, I don't recall this person's name coming up before, refer back to the beginning, alphabetical order. They can see exactly who that person is, what they and what they did or what they're in the book for. Basically.
And let's be clear, because their name is in that book doesn't mean they're part of the mob.
No, absolutely.
You look at the first time I look at what's that name doing in there?
Right.
But it's anybody who was in the book is identified.
Anyone who is in the book is in there, and most of them, or many of them, are very honorable people.
Okay. Dom, let's talk about the case. You came into it, and right away you had an idea of what happened.
Yes. The night that they had found Ash Wednesday, I came into it the following morning. I was assigned to it by the chief at that time, Chief Skineska. And when I went up to the scene, the first thing that struck me was the vanity that we had known at one time that Dovashaw had been robbed prior to that. And the vanity hiding place was laying on the floor, which I believed right away that whoever did this knew exactly what the layout of the house was. And I had an idea that who basically did the robbery to him in 1980. So I directed my attention to those people, one in which was Cesar Montevecchio.
Okay. Tell us about Cesar, because he is one of the key players in this book.
He is the key player, Cesar. Cesar was a guy that was born and raised in Erie, who was very successful in sports as a young man, got a scholarship to college to play sports, but then somehow just got hooked up with the wrong people and started to do burglaries and robberies and things of this nature. Him and his associates back in the late 60s were all caught up in the Boston area, and at which time they were doing bank jobs. They were charged with doing 11 bank robberies. And at that time, he was sentenced in Flint, Michigan to 50 to 70 years in prison. So naturally, everybody at that time thought that was the end of Cesar. But unfortunately, he only did 10 years. And after the 10 years he came out, naturally came right back to Erie and started up again.
There is a corresponding character that is almost as strong, and that is Ray Ferrita. Mm-hmm. It's almost like the Jets and the Sharks.
Right.
Ray Ferrita was the partner of Bolo Dovashaw.
That's correct.
In the booking operation.
Yes.
Tell us about him.
Ray Ferrito had a criminal record going back to the early 60s, where him and some other people that are in the book did some burglaries in Erie, went to jail, and then he got hooked up with some maiden members of the mob out in California, one in which was Jimmy the Weasel Franiani, and they wanted him to do a murder out there for them. In Jimmy Franiani's book, which is called, I believe it's something to do with the mafia. It just slipped my mind as of now. But he talks about a guy from Erie, a young guy from Erie, who had ice water for veins instead of blood. And he said that he would do anything that you would ask him to do. So there was a fellow that, I believe he was a union guy out in California by the name of Julius Petrie, who they wanted killed. And they asked Ferrito if he would do it. And as the story goes, they gave him I believe a 9mm, and told him that he was going to get off of an airplane at the airport in Los Angeles, and that what he would be wearing and everything else, gave him a full description of him. Ferrito had never saw the guy before. And the story goes that about an hour later, he knocks on Franiani's door and gives him the gun back and says, "What else do you want me to do?" So that's basically where his career started. And of course, everybody knew that.
The important relationship with Ferrito here is, and it goes back with Dominick actually to when he was in high school, and you have to get the book and find out
I think I know what you're talking about.
What that's all about. But it was a clear indication of what was going to be happening later. But the importance of Ray Ferrito here, Erie's own hitman, big-time hitman, is that he was the partner, the bookmaking partner of Bolo Dovashaw. So it is very strongly linked to what was going on.
So that money was out of his pocket as well as
absolutely.
Right. And Dovashaw was very pleased with this relationship. He did most of the work, but Ferrito had the muscle, and there was a sense of protection that was which obviously did not exist because he was killed. But if you're pals or partners with the hitman, you would suspect that people are going to stay away from you and you're going to be safe. Yeah.
It was very easy to collect their money with Ray Ferrito around.
Right.
Understanding that it was fairly common knowledge that he was a hitman.
Oh, sure. He was involved in
He was a killer.
He was involved in 1977 of the killing of Danny Green in Cleveland.
In Cleveland, the Irish.
And then after he testified against the Leccavelli family in Cleveland, they put him in witness protection along with Bolo. He went with them because Bolo is one of the people that drove the what they call a Joe Blow car up to Cleveland that parked right next to Danny Green's car when they killed him. But they both were grabbed for that particular killing. They both went witness protection, and then they stayed in witness protection for a while, and then they both came home to start the numbers business again.
One of the things that struck me in the book is that when you read about the Godfather and the Mafia and the Black Hand and the term omerta comes up, you don't rat on anybody. Didn't really work out that way.
That went out with 10 to 20.
I was going to say.
When omerta went out.
It seemed like the first word out of anybody's mouth is, "What kind of deal can I get?"
Absolutely.
How did this case finally resolve?
Without
going into the trial and what happened, how did it get brought to trial?
What happened was I finally had enough on Montevecchio that I was able to charge him with a number of crimes. I believe there was 56 total. And it got to the point where, like he told me, even if you convict me of one of them, I'm going to do a life sentence. And the other 55 go away. So it was to the point where he realized that the only way he had to stay out of the electric chair at that time was to actually talk. And that's what he did. So he put the whole thing together in regards to who did what.
I'm going to turn a sharp corner here for a second because it's interesting. But people who've been around Erie for a while and are aware of the Corporal Robert Owens case, which was indirectly tied to what happened in a robbery carried out by, was it Cesar Montevecchio?
Yes, they did Louis Nardo was the victim of a burglary and a robbery, and Cesar was behind both of them. And basically, the time that Montevecchio comes into the burglary part, which was in November of 1980, that's when the Robert Owens case had happened in December. But there was some controversy in regards to somebody had taken a diamond ring at the Nardo residence after the burglary, and of course Robert Owens was accused of taking the ring. So that's what the connection with that and the Nardo and Cesar happened in 1980.
There's some interesting speculation in the book. Don't go as far as to naming names.
Yeah.
But there, and I'm not going to go into anything here too because it would be a spoiler.
Yeah.
But I think that entire section, much information that was never in the newspaper, never on the evening news, is detailed, quite thoroughly in the book. And Dominick was involved in that case as a detective sergeant from day one. And as you know, the culture, we talked about this earlier, the culture of the police department was different back then. It was the first police murder in a number of years since 1949. And it was handled a little bit differently for the first officers that were on the scene. But you need to read,
Right.
you need to read that so it all goes into play.
I didn't ask the obvious question. Why in the world did they call him Ash Wednesday?
Well,
That was
it's
Bolo
pretty
Dovashaw's?
evident. Pretty evident with the birthmark on the top of his forehead. It was like a raspberry color. In the book here, we have him right on the front cover of the book, and that was one of the nicknames that he had, was Ash Wednesday.
Because of the blemish there. Ed, I did want to say, before you asked the question, there were a couple of people that, there are so many people in the acknowledgments. I think we have 2 pages of acknowledgments, so we wanted to thank people that really helped us along the way. Well, one of them was Mary Jane Koenig, retired Erie school teacher, who did our final edits for us, and we're very, very happy with the work that she did. We thought we had a clean copy of the book, as we've gone through it a number of times, and we found out that we were wrong about that, and she was very, very, very helpful. And the other person is Gail Werner with Warner Books, and I don't think we're supposed to do commercials here, but
Gail's been on the show.
But
and she's a neat person.
Helped us out big time.
she is. She's sold hundreds and hundreds of these books, and they are available there.
I was going to say that. Before we run out of time, let's
Right.
flog some books here.
That's what I wanted to do.
Where can somebody get their hands on either an electronic copy or a hard
Warner
copy?
Book has the hard copy.
Yeah, that's in the Liberty
Liberty Plaza.
There it's on Nook through Barnes & Noble, and as you know, it's available Kindle through Amazon, and we expect very shortly, hopefully when this airs exactly, we hope to be in some of the major chain bookstores around here, and hopefully regionally as well, because there's such an interconnection with Cleveland, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and Youngstown.
Right.
Well, we have barely scratched the surface of those 7 years. I encourage anybody, particularly if you've lived in Erie and you're of a certain age, you're going to enjoy this book. I mean, even if you're just, holy cow, I didn't know that.
Well, even if you're not of a certain age,
Yeah.
you'll find out some of
You'll
what
find
went on historically, but it's told by Dominick in a very compelling way as well. So get out there and buy the book.
Gentlemen, we have blown through our time. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you very
Dominick,
much. Thank you.
Jeff,
Thank you.
always
Thanks
a
for
pleasure.
having us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for watching Amazing Grace. We are an all-volunteer organisation and are always looking for people to help us produce interesting programmes.